Hi everybody, this is Peter. It is Friday, July 23rd, 2010. Well, this weekend is one of three remaining weekends to do phone banking before the August 10th Republican primary here in Connecticut. Now, the good news is that it's supposed to rain all weekend here in Connecticut, which is great for phone banking because it means when we make the calls, people will actually be inside to answer the phone. And also, for those of you who happen to live in an area where there's rain, great time to do phone banking. If you're going to be inside anyway, you might as well be making phone calls for Schiff for Senate. But as I said, only 3 weekends left. The weekends is when nobody's at work. You can make the calls. You can use your cell phones because they're free weekends, weekend minutes. So we really need to have an all-out effort this weekend to make these phone calls. Let me announce the results of Wednesday and Thursday. On Wednesday, we had 85 people calling, and they made a total of 4,253 calls. That's 50 calls per person. It was a close race. We have two people who I'm going to give books to. Diane won with 532 calls, and right behind her was Paul with 523 calls. I don't have more information on Diane and Paul, but we will make sure that they get their books. Fantastic effort by those two individuals in particular. On Friday, yesterday, not as many callers, only 65, but we did make 5,205 calls. That's 80 calls per person. That is a record. That's the most calls per person since we began phone banking about a week and a half ago. The winner, and I don't even have the winner's name yet, made 732 calls. Close behind was James with 714 calls. So both of those individuals making over 700 calls in a single weekday will be getting a free autographed copy of How an Economy Grows and Why It Crashes. Now, so far, since we began this new phone banking effort about a week and a half ago, we've made a total of 71,048 calls. That does not count any of the calls made today on Friday. 71,000 calls. That has got to be making a difference. The only thing that disappoints me so much is I know that we could have made so many more. We could have made 10 times that. We could have made over 1 million calls, considering the number of people in my database, the number of people who watch routinely, I mean every day, who take time out to watch my video blog. Imagine if they were all making calls. Let's try to make that happen this weekend. Let's see if I can hit my goal of 1,000 volunteers making phone calls for Schiff for Senate this weekend. You know, I was at an event yesterday with conservative women. I spoke at this, and actually Linda McMahon was there, the first time we've been on the same podium since the convention, I think, although there were, I think, maybe 8 other candidates for various other offices, so it wasn't really a debate. But several of the women came up to me and mentioned that they were already doing phone banking, and several more were going to give it a try. So this is spreading. We just have to get out there and do this. You know, some of you might not have heard, but over the last couple of days, Rob Simmons announced that not only is his name still on the ballot, but he is going to spend $350,000 advertising the fact that his name is still on the ballot. Even though he's technically not running for office, he's making a public service announcement to the effect that his name is on the ballot. Now, you know, also to Rob Simmons' credit, he has agreed to 2 debates with me next week. So far, Linda has declined the invitation, but both Rob Simmons and myself will be debating. Now, it's interesting, on the Sean Hannity show yesterday, now that Rob Simmons has announced that his non-campaign will be running commercials, Sean Hannity basically threw out an invitation saying that he'd love to have Rob Simmons on his show with Linda McMahon. Now, wait a minute. I've actually been campaigning the entire time. Why hasn't Sean Hannity said, hey, why don't we have Peter Schiff on with Linda McMahon? You know, also Ann Coulter was on. You know, Ann Coulter has been calling for debates between Simmons and McMahon. But what about me? I mean, what am I, chopped liver? I mean, how can I not be included in the debate? Now, obviously, I would be, but, you know, if the Hannity, you know, what people should do is call up the Sean Hannity radio show and ask him, you know, hey, you know, there's another candidate in this race. His name is Peter Schiff. He's got the backing of the Tea Party. He's the real conservative in the race. Why don't you have him on? You know, why don't you have him and Simmons on so the voters know what the alternative is to Linda McMahon. It's amazing how the Main Street media is willing to contrast Linda McMahon with Rob Simmons, but they don't want to put Linda McMahon next to me. You got to ask yourself, why is that? Anyway, let's just make sure that we do all that we can this weekend to increase my name recognition in this race. These phone calls are making a difference. They will make a difference if the people who have been making them continue to make them. But you know what? It'll make more of a difference if those of you who still haven't tried it, give it a shot. Don't worry about it. It's a phone call. It's not going to bite you. No one knows who you are. Look at the comments that people are making. People are enjoying this experience. They're having good conversations. They feel good about what they're doing. You can do it too. And those of you who are doing it, I appreciate your effort, but I got to ask you, let's try to put in more calls per day. We got to make sure that we reach out. We only have, as I said, 3 more weekends. Let's make them count. Let's not waste a single one. So dial all day on Saturday, dial all day on Sunday, and let's see how we do. I'm counting on you. I know you guys can do it. Together, we can win this primary. We can win this election. We can take back our country. This is Peter Schiff for Schiff for Senate. And if you want to make these phone calls, go to my website, schiffforsenate.com. My last name, SCHIFF, forsenate.com. Click on that Liberty Bell, follow the instructions, and begin free phone banking to elect me to the United States Senate. Have a great weekend, but just not too great. Make sure you stay in and make these phone calls. Thank you. Oh, and I almost forgot. Remember that little girl, Sarah Klockow, who made, I think, 780 phone calls on a Friday or Wednesday while her father was at work? Well, that little girl made a YouTube video, and I favorited it on this website. So check it out. Watch what she has to say about why she's making phone calls. And then remember that little girl when you're making your phone calls or you're not making your phone calls. And if you don't want to make it for me or make it for your country, then do it for Sarah, because she cares about the country. She cares enough to give up her summer vacation to make these phone calls. And you know what? I'll throw out the same challenge again this weekend that I did last weekend, and nobody made it. Anybody who can match Sarah Klockow's efforts and make 780 calls, I will give them a free copy of How an Economy Grows and Why It Crashes. She did it in one day. I'll give you guys the entire weekend. Anyway, that's my challenge. That's Sarah's challenge. So get dialing, everybody. Take care.